Hey everybody, welcome to Jacob's Quest, and tonight I just got back from watching Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Definitely not Dead Reckoning Part 2. Definitely not that. And if you don't know, the last movie was called Dead Reckoning Part 1 because this was supposed to be Part 2, but then it didn't do so well, so they changed the name to just Dead Reckoning, and so this one just became The Final Reckoning. But make no mistake, this is absolutely just Part 2 of Dead Reckoning. So if it's been a while since you've watched the last Mission Impossible movie, I do highly recommend that you go watch it. Even though, you know, my first major criticism of this movie begins, like its first opening 20-30 minutes, it is just packed with exposition. It has to like re-explain everything to you, the audience, so the characters have to essentially watch little videos or be in little groups where we're going over everything that happened, and we're having to like re-explain who everyone is, because the last movie introduced a handful of new characters, and so does this movie. Yeah, we're gonna get into it, but anyways, yes, please go watch Dead Reckoning Part 1 and then go watch Final Reckoning, even though you are gonna very much feel the exposition, because they clearly like went into this movie thinking, oh no, what if a lot of people never bothered to watch the last one? How are we gonna deal with this? I know what we'll do. We're gonna reshoot a character just watching a screen, and they're gonna basically have a rundown of the submarine and the key and Gabriel and the entity and this and that, and it kind of goes on, and you feel it, and you're like, okay, I understand why this is here, but I don't know if it's necessary, but okay, sure, why not? Anyways, yeah, so The Final Reckoning. So one thing I never bothered to look up, because I guess I just assumed that these movies would be going on forever. This is apparently, at least for now, is the word, for now, the final Mission Impossible movie. And I didn't realize that going in, even though it's called The Final Reckoning. I figured that was just because of the name change. But as you watch this movie, it very much feels like that was the intention, because this movie has so many callbacks and references and, you know, characters from older movies coming back, or even like they even like pull oh, you're this character that we already know from the last movie, your real name is actually this, which means you're actually related to this character from an older movie, so you're a relative, you know. So like in every way that you can connect these movies, everything from an actual character coming back to a relative of a character coming back to a MacGuffin from an older movie being relevant again, every way you can think of to reconnect it, they do it. So like this very much feels like they're trying to tie up this entire franchise and make it all seem like one cohesive unit with a big bow on top, because it's all connected, right? And some of it is done pretty sloppily, and it doesn't feel like that was the original intention at all. And it definitely feels like they got to this one and they're like, you know what, that character we introduced last time, what if we just kind of just had a scene where we're like, actually your real name is this, you know? And I don't understand the purpose of that. Like this movie has a lot going on. There are so many plot points, and then every one of those plot points has their own twists and turns and inversions, where a character had planned to do this, but then something went wrong, so they have to actually do this. But now that other character, the bad guy, has the thing, so now we gotta completely change our plan and go after the bad guy to go get the thing back. And I understand that that has been kind of a staple for like the last 4 of these movies, right? Like the amount of I don't know if I want to use the word convoluted, but at least complicated planning that kind of goes into a lot of the plots here. But you definitely feel it in this movie. Like if you there's a part where all the characters are sitting around talking. It's about at the halfway mark where we are completely changing what the plan was. And I promise you, if you miss even a single line of dialogue, like if you're still trying to fully process everything that they just said, because they're throwing so much information at you. So if you miss even a single line of dialogue, you're going to be very lost as to what the characters are trying to accomplish, or why they're trying to accomplish that, or why they think that that would work. To even right now, me sitting here talking about this movie, there's still at least one or two things where I'm like, wait, I don't understand that. And we'll get into spoilers later on. Having said all of that, though, of course, this is Mission Impossible. Like, look, the action is awesome. The IMAX is awesome. The stunts are insane, and they do it all, right? I mean, there's car chases, there's plane chases, there's insane underwater sequences. There's plenty of fights. There's plenty of shootouts. There's bombs being disarmed. There, like everything that's ever been in a Mission Impossible movie, they do it here, And again, maybe that's kind of this being the final chapter for now, at least. Like they kind of pull out all the tricks, right? So yeah, lots of really cool, awesome stuff. So like if you just want to see an action movie in IMAX, this is the movie to see. Like you're not going to be disappointed on that front. Like that is one thing that they will nail no matter what. The action, the insane stunts, the visuals, like just seeing the planes fly through these mountain ranges, and then they're going upside down and they're chasing each other, and like this one propeller is trying to buzz the tail of this other plane, and like they're having like a plane fight but with no bullets, so it's just the planes kind of ramming into each other. Like that's awesome stuff. And so to see it in IMAX, it's amazing. So yes, I do recommend you watch the movie. Having said that, and I guess you could say that like some Mission Impossible stories are stronger than others. I would say this one is on the weaker side, if only because, despite the fact that you would think that so much of the setup was happening in the first movie, like the Dead Reckoning Part 1. You would think so much setup happened there that this one could kind of just hit the ground running. But that's not the case. Because even though, like, okay, we did all the stuff from Dead Reckoning Part 1, here's what we got to do now. We got to go get this thing, we got to break into this place, we got to go find this thing, then we got to grab that thing, and then we got to, I'm like, okay, so we're not just going to hit the ground running. We don't just have like we have it now. Now we need to like essentially go to, if you're combining these stories together, essentially just go to like the second or third arc of the story and just have like the cool parts, right? Like just cool action scenes. It's still a lot of like plotting, and it gets really clumsy, I think. Anyways, so I'm gonna get into spoilers just a little bit. I'm not gonna cover the whole plot if I don't have to, but all this to say, it is worth watching in theaters, but you will maybe walk away going like, wait, why did they do this one thing? What were they even trying to do here? I don't even... Yeah, and sometimes, you watch these movies and you're like, was the action planned first and then the plot reasons as to why they're doing this just planned second? Because it feels that way a lot of times. Anyways, let's get to the plot. Here we go. Like, spoilers. Here we go. Okay, so we're picking up a couple months later. The entity has basically taken over the world, or at the very least, it has completely disrupted anything online that people can believe is true or not true. Kind of a little bit of AI commentary on what's happening in our real world, right? So, okay. Having said that, we don't see a lot of that, and we do kind of like dip a toe. We see like a news broadcast where they're kind of dipping a little toe into being like, oh, the entity has its own cult. So there's people who like have faith in the entity now, and like the entity has caused martial law all over the world, and they're trying to raise the stakes, because basically once the entity has control of all the world's nuclear power, like every country's nuclear base, like once it has control of all that, it can just end the world and then do whatever it wants, so I guess that's its ultimate plan. Essentially, it's pulling an Ultron, right? Like it's just gonna wipe the Earth clean and then just rebuild as its own creator, and it's Ultron. It's Age of Ultron. That's what it's doing. So okay, fair enough. So a couple things happen here. I think the first thing for me is we got to talk about Luthen here, the character played by Ving Rhames. He's been there since the first movie, and he really became like a full-time team member, I think, since like the third one, and he's been like in all the movies, right? He's great. Everyone loves Luthen. And you know, again, this feeling like it really is the final entry. Luthen dies. Luthen dies in the first act of this movie, and they do something confusing here where I'm almost questioning if there was like a scheduling conflict or something else I don't know of happened. Because in Dead Reckoning Part 1, Luthen is not around for the final act of that movie because he says, oh, the entity can just it can invade all of my technology. He's the technology guy, right? So all my computers, all my stuff is useless. I need to go set up an analog base where the entity cannot possibly mess with my stuff at all, right? So here we are, a couple months later. Luthen is in this underground, like completely sealed off area. He's working on something that we don't know yet what it is. He's working on something. And then later we see he's in a hospital bed in this underground base. And he's got a nurse who's tending him. And he's got like, you know, one of those hospital air tubes. I don't know what you call them, but they attach to your nose. Anyways, he's got one of those, and then Gabriel comes along, and he's gonna get back at Ethan by killing Luthen, right? So he plants a bomb there, and Luthen ends up disarming the bomb partially, but the whole place collapses and Luthen dies. The thing is, at no point was it ever explained that Luthen was sick in some way or why he was sick. We just see various flashbacks throughout different parts of the movie showing Luthen in a hospital bed and showing Luthen, like, you know, with the tubes in his nose and all that stuff. So I don't understand why they wrote it that way. Like why start this movie months later and now his character is sick? He's in a hospital bed. He has a nurse watching over him. And then he gets killed by a bomb anyways. And now he's gone from the movie. And I'm questioning what happened here. Was this like a plot point that they shaved down? Because none of the characters ever address his illness. And it's never even said that, like, oh, he's only got a couple months left, or like he's like very, very ill or something like that. Like, none of the characters really go into that at all. And then the bomb thing happens. So his death wasn't even related to his illness. So like I'm just struggling to understand, like, when you're writing this, you have a character who is beloved by fans. He's been in all these movies. You're gonna kill him off, and you're just like, oh, we're gonna quickly show scenes of him in a hospital bed, not address it at all, and then a bomb happens. Like, so what? What? So that's one thing I'm still don't quite understand why they did this. I don't really get it, but anyways, Luthen dies. It does, you know, it is tragic. You do kind of feel it, especially if you've watched all these movies and you've gotten to know these characters. You're like, oh man, that was, you know, the three of them. That was the crew, you know? So like, you do kind of feel bad. You're like, dang, Luthen was there like the whole time. And kind of your first indication that, like, oh, this might be the last movie. Is this the last movie? So there's that. The one thing that I just don't quite get. Let's see, a couple other things. I mentioned some certain characters being related to past characters. So in Dead Reckoning, they introduced these two CIA agents. There's this white dude with gray hair, and for that whole movie, he's just an agent who's been tasked with hunting down Ethan, because Ethan's gonna try to destroy the AI, and the government doesn't want to destroy the AI, which, by the way, is like a major plot point in this one. Like, it's all about the government not wanting to destroy it and Ethan trying to destroy it. Anyways, so it's revealed in this one, in a quick scene between Ethan and this guy, who they've already had encounters before this. They had encounters in the movie right before this one. Ethan's like, oh, that's not your real name, is it? Your real name is such and such, right? And then he's like, as in son of the guy from the very first Mission Impossible movie. So yes, if you've watched the first Mission Impossible movie, the team leader, the older guy, he turns out to be a traitor, and he's actually like the main villain at the end. And this guy is his son. So there's like some personal reason now, some personal connection why this guy is chasing down Ethan, even though he immediately goes, I'm just doing this because I have orders. I'm not here for any personal reasons, you know? And really this all just culminates in like a bro handshake at the end of the movie, where Ethan has saved the day and he walks up to him and he's like, respect, and they give like a bro handshake. And I guess that's it. Like, there was no other reason to add that to the character. So this definitely feels like something that was completely tacked on in this movie for no reason. The character already had a different name. They had a different name. There was never any clues that this guy was more significant in any kind of way. But this movie comes along and they're like, hey, what if he had a different name? And what if he's actually related to a character from the first movie? And that's it. Like, there's not, like, for what though? Like, for nothing, just because. It doesn't lead anywhere. It doesn't do anything. So yeah, and this movie's kind of just full of stuff like that in weird ways. Another one is, okay, again, first movie, the guy, when the famous scene when Ethan is like hanging from the ropes and then they're breaking into that facility, and you know, the famous Mission Impossible scene where he's like, his arms are trying to not touch the ground and all that. There's a character who shows up and almost catches them. He's got glasses and he's got combed black hair. He's got glasses on, and he's like a hacker of some kind. And he designed this whole database that they broke into in the first movie. And he shows up again in this one. They go to Antarctica and they knock on the door, and this guy shows up. And then, you know, the Benji, who's never met this guy because he was not there on that mission, but he goes like, oh, you're that guy, you designed that database, man, that's crazy. And he's like, wait, how do you know about that database? You know, it's not as unbreakable as it was supposed to be because someone broke into it 30 years ago, you know. You can almost feel them like looking at the camera and like winking to the audience like, 30 years ago when someone broke into that database. Yeah, I remember that. and don't get me wrong, this character at least sticks around for the rest of the movie, and he actually does, you know, contribute to the plot. So that one at least doesn't feel like as, I guess, egregious, but like it's like, okay, sure, why not? That guy. I didn't remember that character even had a name. I remember him being in that one scene because he's the character who, like, he picks up the knife off the desk and he's like, whoa, how'd this get here? And then only later, like, oh, people broke into the database. But he wasn't even like a major character in that first movie. He was just there for that scene. So to bring him back also feels like it just feels random, I guess. Like, it just, like, I mean, sure, why not, I guess, but okay, the guy with the glasses in that one scene in the first movie, he's in this, and he's in it a lot. That's fine, I guess. I mean, he ends up being a cool character who, like, you know, he kind of saves the day at the end, so alright. It works, I suppose. But anyways, the only character that this movie did not bring back was Jeremy Renner. In case you guys forgot, Jeremy Renner was in like 2 of these movies, and I think it was like 4 and 5 or 3 and 4, something like that. He's the only character that they did not manage to get a cameo or a mention or a name drop or anything like that. Surprising. Like I was like mostly through the movie and I was like, is Jeremy Renner gonna show up? Because that's the only one they haven't done yet. They've brought back everyone else. And even there's even like I don't remember his name, the villain of like number 4 or 5, the guy with the glasses. He's like the leader of that organization. He's got the glasses on, the horn-rimmed glasses. He even makes a cameo for a second. There's like a flashback scene where like they're like, oh, and there was this team that showed up and destroyed all my data, and it was that guy. So you're like, oh, it was his team, that the villain from the other movie. and then they reveal that in Mission Impossible 3 there was something called the Rabbit's Foot, which was just this, you know, another MacGuffin that everyone's chasing. But this one they never actually revealed what it was. And so now they're saying that the rabbit's foot that he stole back in Mission Impossible 3 actually evolved to become the entity, the AI. And so now it's Ethan's fault that the AI exists in the first place because he stole it from that facility. So so like they tie it all back together to like it's all personal for Ethan. It's all his fault, you know? It's like, you know, and again, it feels like they went to write this next one and it doesn't feel like they had a plan. You know, it just seems like they're like, how many different crazy ways can we tie stuff together because we've decided this will be the last one? And they're just like, they just said yes to all of them. Any wild idea you had out there of like how you could make a reference to something that happened in the past, they're like, do it. Doesn't matter what it is, do it. All references, all cameos, do it all, you know? Jeremy Renner's the only one they weren't able to get for some reason. So anyways, yeah, pretty wild stuff. Something else this movie does that I thought was kind of strange. The opening sequence, a lot of stuff happens. You know, we're picking up a couple months later and we're learning all this stuff that's changed around the world, and we see Gabriel plant the bomb where Luthen is, which, by the way, I don't know how did Gabriel haul a bomb all the way over there? Because this thing looks like it weighs several hundred pounds, right? Like it's a giant metal thing. But okay, somehow Gabriel was able to do that on his own because he ran there. He was running away from Ethan, and then later Ethan's like, oh no, Luthen's in trouble. So he runs to Luthen, and somehow Gabriel's already planted this massive bomb underground. But okay, fine, whatever. My point is, we get flashbacks, like random flashbacks every once in a while. A character will be talking about something important, and then they'll do a flashback to a scene from earlier in the movie, but a point where the movie had cut away from, and then they'll explain like, oh, this is that thing that Luthen was working on, and now it's really important to the plot. But it's almost like they didn't want to introduce it to the audience, so they had to like cut away from that moment. That way later on when it's important, they can cut back to the moment and we're like getting like a middle of the movie flashback with Luthen explaining what this thing is and why it's so important. And I don't know, I know movies have done that before, but this just, they did it several times and it felt really stilted, I guess is the word. Like it just felt really sudden. They're like, they'd mentioned something and then we get like sudden flashback, oh right, this thing and this thing, and then this thing happened, and oh that's right, you know. So those were kind of weird and choppy, and it definitely feels like a decision that was made not in the writing process, but more of a decision that was made in editing later, where they're like, they had it all laid out chronologically, and then later they're like, actually let's cut that section out and let's put it way over here in the middle. That way the audience doesn't know what this thing is or why it matters until an hour from now when we do a flashback explaining it. And I don't know if that was a good decision or a bad decision. I just know it felt strange because these movies don't usually do that too much, but you could really feel it here. Let's see. There is another thing that's it's really weird that they did this. So if you watch Dead Reckoning, they go over how Ethan and Gabriel have this past, this really dramatic like rivalry past, because at some point before Ethan was with the IMF, he was wanted for a bunch of crimes. That's all we know. He's just wanted for a bunch of crimes, and so he was given the choice to join the IMF. At some point, Gabriel had killed this woman that Ethan was in love with, and that's all we really know. We're told in Dead Reckoning Part 1 that Ethan thought Gabriel had died at some point. We don't know why or when or how. We just see that same black and white flashback of Ethan like running up to a gate, and Gabriel has already gunned down this woman and she's dead, and that's all we know of their past. Now you would think here in Part 2 we're gonna explore their past. How do they know each other? You know, what started this whole rivalry? And also, like, what made Ethan join the IMF? What was the crimes that he was being held against to give him the choice and make him join and all that stuff? Because in Dead Reckoning Part 1, this is like a big deal. They go over this like 2 or 3 times, okay? And at the beginning of this movie, he gets a message basically explaining all this again, saying like, hey, you were given an option to join the IMF, you were wanted for crimes, you and Gabriel have this whole history, he killed someone you love, and we see the same flashbacks again. They never explore this again. They never explain what was happening, who was that lady that he killed. Like, they don't go into it. You know, it's just Ethan hates this guy and he wants to kill him. But like, we've never seen the origin of this big rivalry. And by the end of this movie, Gabriel's dead. So we're just never gonna learn like what happened. What was the big, you know what I mean? Like, it feels like they were hinting at an origin for Ethan joining the IMF and everything that happened and who he is and what's even going on. It felt like they were like hinting at that origin story, and then they never explored it. And so to do all this other stuff, to have all these cameos and all these references and all this connections to past movies, and the one thing you don't do is explain Ethan's origin story and his big rivalry with this movie's villain and all this stuff of his background. You hinted at it and you show a quick little black and white flashback that doesn't have any context to it at all. I don't understand. You have 2 parts of this movie. You know, that's like 4 hours of content here, and you never bother to explain what their rivalry was. What was their beef? Why did Ethan hate Gabriel so much? Was it just because he killed some woman? We're never told anything about this. What, like, who was she? What were they doing? How did he know her? How did he know him? Why did he think Gabriel had died before this? And then in Dead Reckoning, he finds out he's alive and he's all shook by it. He's like, oh my god, he's alive. We never find out anything about that. It's bizarre. It's so bizarre, some of the things that they left out of this movie. So this movie is packed. It's so packed. There's so much going on. And surprisingly, there's like really seemingly big things like that not in the movie, not being addressed, just kind of left by the wayside. And I don't know. I don't really get it. Anyways, so our movie basically ends. Ethan has saved the day. They've captured the AI in some kind of little digital cage, like basically a USB drive, but it's all glowy and cool looking. And it's basically left in the hands of Ethan to where he now has the most powerful AI in the world that could destroy everything. And everyone wanted to like control it. Like all these governments around the world wanted to take control of the AI. It's never really explained how that could even be accomplished. Like, just because you have the AI's source code and you could destroy it, I don't see why the AI would, you know, do what you say suddenly. Like, it's you know, it's not I don't know, it's not like a person. I don't know, it just seems strange. Like, what was the plan for that even? I don't know. But anyways, Ethan has it now, and he's just got in a little box. And then everyone kind of just like nods at each other for like a solid, it's like an awkward like 10-minute nodding scene where like he gets the box and then he looks over there and like, oh, there's Benji, nod. And they look over there and like, oh, there's the lady I saved in the last movie. Let's all nod to each other. And like, oh, there's the other lady. Let's nod. Yep. And like, they don't say anything to each other. And I get maybe they're being like undercover or something, or maybe, I don't know. I know he can't let the governments know he has this box, but it was just like a really awkward scene where they're like all just like nodding and like music's playing, and then that's how it ends. Like, that's how the movie ends. That's how the franchise ends, in like a really awkward nodding scene where we're all gonna like nod and smile at each other, but everyone has to separate because, you know, we can't be seen or something. I don't know. It was really awkward. It was really weird. And I guess overall, I'm just like, look, I enjoyed this movie for its action, for its stunts, for a lot of the, you know, the visuals. It looked really amazing, but its story was lacking, and it was bloated, and it was overly complicated, and It felt like they were just making it up on the spot. Even though this was supposed to be part 2 of a story, it felt like there was a surprising amount that they did not have planned. You know, and I'm like, this was part 2. I don't did you not know where you were going after part 1? Because why make it part 2 then? Like, well, anyways, and yeah, why does Ethan hate Gabriel so much? Like, what, other than just killing some woman who we never know anything about? What happened? We never know. We'll never find out. Were they on a mission altogether? I don't know. We'll never know. Anyways, that is Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Look, if you want to see it in IMAX, you want to see the action scenes, they're great, they're awesome. And let's be honest, I feel like most people are just gonna want to watch it for the action, right? Like, that's why you bought the ticket, right? So that's fine. But if you're trying to follow along with the story, the more you think about it, the more you're like, wait, what did they do? why are they, you know, like, it just gets weirder and more complicated the more you think about it. And as much as they try to tie it into the other movies, it feels like such a surface level, like, shallow connection to anything. So it was weird. Like, it felt like such a Hollywood studio thing to do, to be like, oh, character name related to that character. Hey, what actor from, like, the first movie can we get? That guy? Okay, come on, you're gonna stick around for a little while just because. like it's not like Ethan and that guy were on a first name basis, but the audience remembers him. Maybe we're gonna show the clip. Actually, we're gonna keep showing flashbacks to that moment that character was in the first movie. That way, when he shows up, you're gonna be like, oh, it's that guy with the glasses. Okay. I guess. So anyways, let me know what you guys think about Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. I still enjoyed the movie, but I'm definitely like, I need to know the behind the scenes of what happened here, because there's a lot of strange things and a lot of stuff that was just ignored and left out altogether. Did this have a different writer? Did some other writer come in? I don't know. I'm gonna have to look it up. Anyways, let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.